Happy Mother's Day! My name is Noemie
And I'm Sharnikya Howard.
and we are sister friends.
Yes,
And
indeed.
and we are sharing a little bit about us through this Happy Mother's Day podcast.
We're sharing a lot. It's for the mothers, the aunties, the godmoms, the ones that have a tribe, that are looking for a tribe, that are open to new experiences, that are
Anxious and curious about life.
It's for you.
Yep. But we also want you to share your perspective on what we're talking about. So we welcome you along this ride. Happy Mother's Day!
Happy Mother's Day!
I'm going to laugh every time we say that. Anyway, on today's episode of Happy Mother's Day, we're talking about motherhood. I mean, we talk about motherhood in every
We talk about everything,
episode. We talk about our real lives, and motherhood is a huge part of that. And I was sharing this with Shar a little bit before we started recording that I feel like we all have those moms that we admire, or like hashtag mom goals, just people that we just aspire to be like. And one of mine, I went up to her and I asked her, I was like, how do you do it? And it was like, child, I don't know.
Nobody knows.
But I mean, I feel like, especially when I first found out I was pregnant and just like the early months of being a mom, there's this image of just moms, or at least like the good moms having it all together. And I don't know if I just put unnecessary pressure on myself, but it's just like, how do they know? They must know because, you know, maybe they had a great mom, or maybe they have examples. And no, like the consensus, and I asked this question to a lot of moms actually. The consensus is like, you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know what you're doing. And half of those times, the moms you don't always feel like you're doing a good job as a mom. And I know for me, I at least rely on my friends and my husband because I think I'm harder on myself than I need to be. But I just gotta let it. I gotta let it go. I let it go.
So growing up watching Claire Huxtable,
hashtag mom goals.
Oh
for
my
real.
God, such mom goals, and like just their family. And I had all these ideas once I was pregnant. So I did not grow up dreaming of like getting married or having children. But I always loved Claire Huxtable. And then, once I kind of got over the shock of being pregnant,
that's a whole other story.
Of course, my mind went back to like some of those moms, my grandmother, my mother, and, what my experience was like growing up with a single mother and being raised by my grandmother, and they did a phenomenal job, and I wanted to take it to the next level, and I didn't know what that looked like, but there was naturally this pressure that I put on myself to do a better job.
What does that better mean?
What does that even mean? Than what I experienced. And I will say that like I am learning to parent Queenie every day. Like every day I learn something new about myself and how to parent her. And I think it's very different for each child, right? Like you have two, so I would imagine that
I'm two different moms. Like I feel like
already
oh my gosh, yes. And I think that oh man, I don't know that I've ever really dug deep into this. So we're about to do it. Okay, we're about to do it. I'm about to be super honest and real. I needed validation with Emery on me being a good mom. I think that, we've shared this in season 1, how we became mothers. And I think it was a shocking, experience for us both for different reasons. But I think with Emery, I was on like super hydropower mode, it's just like, these are the things that I got to do. And these are the things that I have to say. And these are the opportunities that I have to, bring to her. And I was kind of like on autopilot. I didn't feel like I was as present in the beginning stage. I think I did a good job, but I don't know that I kind of let things be.
Because with your first child, there's this nervousness or this anxiety
Oh
around
my
whether you're going to
gosh,
break
yes,
them.
I
And so you
know.
want to do all things
Yeah.
and everything, and you want to do it perfectly.
And then you beat yourself up
Yeah.
if you're not. At least I did. You know, I beat myself up a lot with Emery. And I think in some ways I still do. It's funny because my husband and I just had a conversation because Emery and I we've been bumping heads a lot, just in general. I think it's the age thing. I think it's mommy-daughter relationships. But we were bumping our heads about, what was it? We were in Arizona. Remember when we got locked out the room? And I was so pissed. I was so mad because she keeps on saying, like, Mommy, I want to learn how to be a babysitter. Like, Mommy, I want to be the best big sister ever, which is great. And she's probably putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on herself too. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But I was upset because I told her to hold the door. And I was like, babe, just hold the door. Like, just hold the door. We had a whole debacle about the car seat and the stroller, and it was just a lot. And she let the door close. And I'm like, babe, all you had to do was hold the door. And I'm like, at least it closed with me having Sydney, because at first I was going to bring the stroller out first, but I'm like, let me just bring Sydney out first. And
but wait, now I can see it. Like when I got back to the door and you were standing there, like, but you were so graceful. You were like,
but let me tell you why. I think that I have learned to be, I mean, I give my kids so much grace, probably more grace than I give myself, you know what I mean? But they will always have grace. Right before you came up, Emery asked me for a second chance. She's like, Mommy, can I have a second chance to be a better big sister? It's like, first of all, I was kind of sad. It's like, dang, like, I can't believe you asked this. You know what I mean? Like, one, I was actually proud of her for advocating for herself in that way. But I think, and I spoke about this on my page on a sit down talk where I was just like, how many kids didn't have opportunity to have second chances? You know, and not even like in these big, you know, moments, but like a second chance to, you know, for a parent to kind of bring them back down to the level of their kids, to realize that the frustration that I'm feeling isn't a big deal, because you know what happened? You came and you rescued us. And it took an extra, 5 minutes? It wasn't even that big of a deal. So like, yes, I think it's important to explain, to like have these lessons with your kids, but I also think it's important for them to kind of realize that it's okay to not have it all together. And that was a big lesson for me, because I was a little sad. I was like, wow, like, first of all, you always get a second chance. Absolutely. But like, to have to ask, and I just thought about all those kids that weren't given that, and it really made me. I thought about my own childhood. And they feel like
one mistake,
something small could have happened, and it's still playing in your mind now. Like, you know, like those embarrassing things that happen, and you be in bed, you be like, damn, why did I say that, or why did I do that? You know?
Yeah.
But just going back to, you know, the way that we're mothering, I feel like with Emery and I, like, our mother-daughter relationship is what's growing me in motherhood, and I can take the mother that I'm becoming and give it to Sydney. It's like a constantly kind of evolving kind of thing. And it's not to say that I'm not learning anything from Sydney. I think with every kid you learn, you know, something, but I feel like I'm able to take the gems in the experience with Emery and kind of feed them into the experience with Sydney. And I think that, like, that's like the biggest lesson, is just to kind of going with it. Really does. Everybody always talks about going with the flow, and but it's hard to go.
And then how do you know which one is the flow? What is the flow?
Right? I think just realizing that these mistakes are never that big. It's never that big of a deal.
It's not a big deal.
And you know if it's a big deal. Like, if it's a catastrophic kind of event, like, you know, but I think just thinking back and thinking about those situations and thinking, like, is this that big of a deal? Is it a mountain problem, as Emery says? She has pebble problems. What is it? Pebble problem, rock problem, and mountain problem. Is this a mountain problem? It's not.
It's not. It typically is not. I am learning that I don't know it all.
No, we don't.
I cannot fix it all. I cannot spare her or me from everything. And I mean, having a child is like one of the greatest opportunities I've had to surrender and just let go and let her be and let us be. And so I've learned so much about myself and my childhood. Like as I parent her, um, I think back on the things that, I mean, it all worked out for my good, but the things that went really well, and then those that didn't, and what I want to change for her. Um, but also how like my upbringing has shaped me, and how I bring those things into all my relationships, not just with Queenie.
Yeah.
Like, in a lot of ways, I think through how I show up at work, or how I did initially, at least. I read an article a couple of weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it was a Black woman sharing her experience at work, and kind of dimming her light or masking, and not, as readily or as easily speaking up for herself or advocating. And I think for a lot of us, and she touched on it, it starts at home, when you're cut off, when you're shut down, when you don't have a voice, and when you look at authority as, this authority figures as these people who can challenge you, but you can't fight back, or you can't push back, and you don't have a voice in those spaces, and that stays with you as you navigate. Does. And so I think through. And honestly, though, that was not my experience. I could say whatever I wanted to say to not so much to my grandmother, but I think by the time I came along, my grandmother was older. She was a little tired.
Yeah.
So I didn't get spankings. I didn't have to go get my own switch. I didn't have to do those things. But and with my mom, there were definitely some boundaries that I could not cross with my mom, but I had a voice. So I'm really grateful for that. And that has stuck with me, like a lot of freedom. Like I said, in another episode I shared, I didn't feel a lot of pressure to do anything. Yeah. Gratefully, I was a pretty decent kid, so I didn't get into any trouble, but I didn't feel that pressure. I had a voice. And so I'm trying to make sure that Queenie has that experience. Where she knows that she can push back, she can challenge me, she can ask, she can be curious. Yeah. That is what we call it in our home. Yes. Like you can be curious. You cannot be disrespectful, but you can be curious. You can ask questions. You can ask me why. And I love this. I spoke at the Flash Tech Summit hosted by Adrienne last Saturday. Yes. And before it started, some women and I were standing outside, and we were just talking about how we're parenting. It's so ironic. We were talking about how
Isn't it funny how that's always a conversation? Yeah.
And one of the things that I took away from one of the moms in the circle was that she and her children have a voice, but they have non-negotiables. These are things that you must do. Right. And then the other things you can challenge, you can ask questions, whatever, we can have a conversation, but there are some non-negotiables. So I feel like what I'm learning about myself as I parent Queenie benefits both of us. And she's shaping me in a way that I never imagined. Like you said, you learn so much from her. I learned so much from her about life and the world, and I love seeing it through her eyes. And I take a lot of that with me into corporate spaces and into these rooms that I'm able to navigate now. And the way I show up for myself, it's almost like I'm showing up and I'm advocating for both of us. Yeah. Because you take away time from her.
You do.
So I'm going to show up and I'm going to advocate for both of us, but I'm learning so much about myself just from being her mom. But it looks different every day.
Of course. Because it's a different situation every day. It's a different lesson every day.
Yeah. And they change every day. I guess we do too. But these kids, I'm like, when did you learn that word?
Listen, I think they change at a faster rate. But I think biologically they do. They have a lot, especially younger kids. There is so much to learn about being a human in those first couple of years that they do change at a faster rate than we do. And I think that they're more not only susceptible to change, but change is a requirement for them. Us is a choice. We can decide to be who we want it to be at 20, whatever the age is. You can put any number in there. You can say, this is who I am. There's no one or anything that can change that. Yeah. And I will say I was that person until I became a mom. I think that in some ways, I've always been really confident, and I've always been, a go-getter and someone that advocated for myself, but I didn't always feel like that in my career. I'm a lawyer by trade. I went to law school, went through all of the things, and there is a culture of like more senior attorneys versus junior attorneys. And it's just like the experience gives you the, maybe not confidence, just confidence, but it's like your word carries more weight the longer that you've been working at a firm or working in this particular field. And I did at times find myself not speaking up as often before I had Emery. And then after that, it was kind of like, I know that she inspired it, but before it was more of advocating for my family and advocating for the time that I wanted to spend with my family. And then once Emery became older and, going through things in school and making sure you're teaching her to advocate for herself in the classroom, I find myself learning from those lessons. And I found that I wasn't always taught those lessons. So like, I can only imagine what these girls are going to grow up to be, especially if they enter the corporate space. Like, what? Like, they're going to have the tools and everything. And I think like motherhood also teaches me that you're not done learning. You know what I mean? I feel like if we surrender, like you said, surrender into the motherhood process, surrender into being understanding that we're going to change and being accepting of that change. Because I will definitely say, going back to having that more rigid kind of motherhood stance, is there were certain things that were non-negotiables for me as a mom. But then when you think about why, I'm thinking about, because those are things that I didn't get in my childhood. So how much of those things that you're instilling in your kid about you versus what is it that they need?
What do they need?
Emery doesn't need any help advocating for herself. She might be quiet, she might be sensitive, but she will tell you exactly how she feels and why. Yeah. But me kind of pushing that and honing in on that has more to do with me than it has to do with her. So I'm noticing that. And, Sydney's just, I don't know if that's because Emery's her big sister and I'm her mama, but she has no problem advocating. I don't think I'm going to have that issue with her. But even going back to the lessons with motherhood, I think me being her mother is going to teach me something completely different.
Than
like,
what you,
oh my God, she's a totally different kid. She's a totally, totally different human, and I just think that I'm entering the second season of motherhood a lot more present, a lot more chill. Like, we're just kind of going with it, and if a problem presents, I'm not on troubleshooting mode. With Emery, I was in trouble. I was just like, this could happen. Let me do this in advance of that. And I stressed myself out about it because those things didn't happen. Like one of the biggest things was I wanted to raise Emery to not feel like she has to hug people if she doesn't want to hug people. She don't hug people anyway. That was never a lesson that I had to teach her, because she don't want to do it. She's not going to do it.
That's a big, that's a big thing for me, is growing up, I had to hug everybody. Yep. The weird person at church, the one that smelled, like whoever it was, I had to hug them. And that's big for me. Like Queenie does not have to go anywhere she doesn't want. Like if she doesn't want to stay, right? She won't. But it's just, it is, and maybe we should talk about this separately. But for me, like raising her, I had to have conversations. We'll probably touch on this more, but it was really big for me. And I had to have conversations with like family and whoever to let them know, like, it's not a sign of disrespect, but I'm raising her this way. I want her to trust her gut, her instinct about who she wants to have that type of connection with. So she's not hugging for the sake of hugs. You don't have to ask if she wants to, and she will run up to those that she wants to and give them a hug. Or if someone does, if she wants to, she will. There's no reticence around it. And so that's what I want for her. But growing up in the South, you hugged everybody. And I remember preparing myself to have the conversation with family. Like, I wasn't nervous. Like, this is my child, and I'm going to advocate for her in a way that she cannot. She's learning to trust herself. So that was a whole thing. And anyway, we'll have a separate episode on that. But it's instilling those things in them that were not necessarily instilled in us from the beginning. To, we're in control of our bodies and who we hug and where we spend the night, all the things. Now, I couldn't spend the night anywhere.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to either.
That wasn't
Yeah,
happening.
I grew up in a very strict household, and similarly to you, in Haitian culture, we kiss everybody. Yeah. So like, yeah, we kiss everyone. Like, you walk into a room, you kiss all the elders one by one, by one, by one, by one. Granted, we haven't been in that situation because I think families in my generation look so different. Growing up, like everybody came out. Great aunts, great uncles, aunts, aunties, uncles, kids. Like it was never a party, a get together, or something with less than 70 people. That's never. Can you imagine going in a room and kissing like 50 people? Yeah, we haven't been in that situation. But even if we were, Emery is so sure of, like, she wouldn't do it anyway.
She absolutely
she wouldn't. She's like, "Mommy, I don't want to."
Yeah.
And I would never force her, to do that. And that kind of leads me to, like, we hear this phrase a lot. And I don't know if we plan on talking about this in another episode. I didn't see it, but I'm going to just throw it out there and see what happens. But we talked about, raising our kids in a way where they don't need to have therapy, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
what is it?
Yeah, we're talking about that.
Oh, we are in a different episode? Okay, we'll talk about that later. But I will, as just an extra note, I will say that there really is a huge distinction between the trauma that we experienced as children and the way that we project that trauma onto our kids.
Yeah.
And I think we also just have to be okay with knowing that, like, our kids are going to have their own sets of issues with us, with the world, with the, with the people around them. And we have to make sure that we give them that space to speak their piece. And I think, like, even thinking about the hugging thing, like, I never forced Emery to do that with anyone, but that hasn't even come up as a problem. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, like, how many times am I mothering the little girl inside of me versus mothering the little girl in front of me? You know what I mean? And that is something that I wouldn't say I'm struggling with, because it's not a struggle, it's a realization. It's just something that I'm working through and something that I'm practicing being more present with. And that's another thing that, like, motherhood told me, like, not only is there not like a template or a book, a guidebook or anything, I think a lot of it is really winging it on purpose. Like, we think of winging it like it's a bad thing, like it's something that you're not prepared for. But no, like, I'm prepared for motherhood because I had a baby. Yeah. Anybody that's capable of having a baby, whether that's your, blood child, whether you, like, any mother figure is capable of being a mother. Yeah. And I think that's not the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing is just showing up for your kid, being present, and just trying to just be there more as a guide, more as a mirror, more as someone to hold your hand. And I think I came into motherhood thinking, like, I have to protect this child and I have to guard them for the world, because the world is crazy. The world has been good to us so far. Yeah. The world has been better to us than I thought. I think that the scary isn't as scary as I thought it would be. The unknown isn't as bad, as I thought it would be. There are some moments that are more challenging than others, but I don't know, man. I just feel like just having a little bit more of a positive, like a positive stance on things has kind of lessened the stress. Stress is a bad word. Not lessen the stress, but lessen the scary. It's not as scary as I thought it would be.
And we're doing it scared.
We're doing it scared. Yeah. And you just got to do it.
You just got, and two things that I thought of as you were sharing is, like, in terms of what I've learned now is, like, the way that I advocate for Queenie, in some ways I don't even advocate for myself. And
I need to readjust. You're speaking to
and
me.
Some of the things that I do for her or on her behalf, I didn't even do for me. But I'm nudged to do that. I'm nudged to take better care of myself. Yeah. Even, like, big or small thing, but with food,
How so?
So, I mean, we were eating anything.
Yeah.
Right? And especially once I hit college,
Yeah.
I was eating anything. And now, granted, growing up with my grandmother, everything was fresh, in North Carolina for the most part. Always home cooked meals. We did not have money for McDonald's. So that really wasn't a thing. McDonald's or those things were a treat. Even once I moved to DC with my mother, like that was a treat. But, now with Queenie, I'm looking at labels. I think about the ingredients, and I'm not like overwhelmed by it because I cannot control everything. But I'm thinking, I was doing it for her, but I'm like, I'm not even doing it for myself. I'll eat the trash. I don't want to give it to you, but it's forcing me to think more clearly and to be more grateful for this body that I have, right? And to take care of it.
Yep.
But it started with me doing it for her.
Yeah.
Not something that I was doing for myself, but just being mindful of the dyes and just some of the things in the foods just for her. Just for her. Because you know better, you try to do a little better, even if not for yourself. But there are other areas where I've seen that, where I'm doing things for her and I wasn't doing it for myself. So it's forcing me to do that.
Does that ever, do you ever feel, does it make you feel pressured, or is it just kind of like a realization thing?
So when it's for her, no pressure, because I will gladly do whatever I can. Yeah. Right. I'm making better decisions for her. No pressure, easy buttons. Seriously, I don't feel pressured in any way. For myself, yes. Yes. It feels like work.
Because it is work. You're reworking.
Yeah.
I think the difference is, this is Queenie's reality. Her entire life, you've been mindful of those things. Now you're reprogramming your mind. Yeah. And that's decades worth of work that you have to rewire. So, I mean, give yourself some grace.
I'm trying.
That's what you would tell me.
That is what I would tell you.
You'd be like, girl, it's not even that deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, I'm going to stop saying that because life is tough. Motherhood is a blessing. It's hard at times, just like anything else is hard. But I think if you're constantly in a space where you're open to change, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah. But there will be some days, I believe, for all of us, where you're just like, this is the pits. And I don't want to do this today.
It's okay to not be okay.
And that's when you say, Auntie Noemie, can she come over? Or God Mommy.
Oh, we do that often.
That is a part of it too. Is being honest about your motherhood journey. I am a single mom. The village is my co-parent. And I have to rely on the village. And there are times where I don't want to do anything. And I had to be okay with that. Scheduling time apart from first of all, that
I already
girl,
know where you're going.
She's the one who told me, okay, that it's okay for us to be apart.
She needs some alone time.
Yeah. And then you were the one who told me that I need to make time for myself, even when I don't have anything going on, to do nothing, and to schedule her to come to your house or Godmommy's, because that's really the only place she can go. Even when I don't have plans. Yeah. But when I travel, I went to Dubai in January, and that was the longest time I was away from her. And it was going to be the furthest I had ever been from her. And I had some anxiety. And I sat her down and I'm like, Queenie, I'm going to Dubai with Godmommy and Goddaddy and everybody. And I'm feeling kind of nervous about it. I'm going to miss you. And she's like, Mommy. It's gonna be fine. It's Auntie Shantia is gonna be with me. We're gonna have fun. We can talk on video chat. And I was just like, thank you. And you're right.
I love her so much.
Right.
Queenie's the best.
Yeah.
She really is the best.
So they teach us so much.
They do. And they're going to continue to. Yeah. And we're going to continue to change. Yeah. And we're going to continue to grow. And then, they're going to be big people and they're going to be their own people and they're going to continue.
We're going to follow them to college and grad school.
I'm not. I have no desire to do that.
Well, pray for me.
Kier will. Kier's going to move wherever. He's so funny. We just saw my dad not too long ago. He was like, Mr. G, we're going to have to tag team because if I'm with one, who's going to be with the other? Because I already said, don't call me. That was the first thing that my mom did say. When I got older, she's like, I think I was 17 when I started college. She's like, If you make any mistakes, that's on you. I did my job.
So my mom was
I did my job.
She was basically like, I'm expecting you to be who you were raised to be when I left for Bennett. So but I didn't have a curfew growing up. And Bennett, and there was a curfew. You had to be in by 11. So I remember calling my mom. I said, Mom, they have a curfew. You know that's not going to work for me. My mom said, well, don't have those people calling me. She was basically like, you better figure it out. Even
but
when
she knew you would.
Yeah, she knew. She knew I would. And I did. I just snuck in the window quietly.
Well, I guess they don't hear now.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
But,
I love that. That just made me think about one thing, and then I know we got to land this plane. But, like, I think that a gift that my mom and what it sounds like your mom had is we always think that our moms just know what to say sometimes. I think by that time, your mom knows you.
Yeah.
They know what you're going to do. They know how you're going to respond. You know what I mean? And I think that, like, now just thinking about it, like, my mom knows me. So my mom said that to me because she knew I wasn't going to do nothing crazy. If she had to worry about me, she wouldn't have let go as easily.
You know your children.
Yeah. And my mom knew me, and my mom also knew that I'm the type of person that needs responsibility. And if I felt like I had to be responsible for myself, I would rise to the occasion. And we do that with our kids.
Yeah.
That's that gift.
Yeah,
that's
it
that.
is.
I think we just unlocked
that
something.
Gift.
Yes, we have that gift. But we're gonna land this. I'm sure that if you are a mom, motherhood has taught you so many things. And if you want to share, if you feel inclined to share, please share it below. Yeah. Or reach out to us. This is an ongoing conversation, like we say about everything. Yeah. I'm sure we're gonna have a whole list of things when they're like 10. I know. And when they're
okay, I'm not the topic.
Our babies are still babies. Yeah. Let's relax.
We got time.
But we will talk to you later.
Okay.
Happy Mother's Day. Bye guys.